Model steam engines, top tip time, part 69. Once upon a time I was working on a chassis of a 5-inch gauge Castle class locomotive. There were many problems with this. Here is just one of them. This engine was never completed by me. I just repaired the chassis, along with the running gear, the brakes and the footplates. Here I'm working on the cylinder cladding. The original cylinder cladding had quite a lot of dents and scrapes at both sides. Initially I attempted to repair the cladding using JB Weld, but I didn't think that was a very satisfactory situation. Instead I removed the old stuff to find asbestos underneath, which was not what I expected, and thankfully the asbestos lagging at both sides was completely soaked in oil, so it didn't pose much of a threat. I don't show that part in this video. If you'd like to watch the entire series, it is called Hogwarts Castle, a 5-inch gauge locomotive. These are just edited clips taken from just one episode. On with the show. In this episode, I'll be removing the drain cocks and the damaged cylinder cladding. The drain cock linkage is held in place by quite a few of these small 10BA bolts. And the odd thing is that none of these 10BA bolts are lock nutted, so it's quite surprising that they haven't fallen off. I intend to replace these drain cocks with new ones because the old ones are fairly badly worn. But the first part of the job involves removing the linkage. And for any beginners watching who don't know anything about steam locomotives, the drain cocks are operated from a lever in the cab. This lever opens and shuts the drain cocks via a linkage, pretty much like this one. In no time at all, the linkage has been removed, and I've put the nuts back on the end of these bolts because they're actually sharp where they've been cut off. And now, using my trusty, reliable Barco spanner, I'm removing the drain cocks. The drain cocks are fitted into bushes which in turn are screwed into the cylinder. On this drain cock there are some very rough looking pieces of metal functioning as shim washers. I'm going to discard these. And yes, you guessed it, I'm going to fit proper copper shim washers, which will allow the new drain cocks to be set to exactly the same angle as the linkage. I don't know why people do this. And now, with a very small screwdriver and a very small hammer, it's time for some controlled ultraviolence. This cylinder cladding is very thin and it's held to the main cylinder by some small rivets that are very small. I'm levering the cladding away around the rivets, which will hopefully pull all the rivets out of the cylinder without leaving them behind. I like everything to be serviceable, so I think when I refit the cylinder cladding, which will be thicker than this, I'm going to attach it using small bolts. Quickly moving on to the other side, I'm tapping the screwdriver underneath the cladding very close to the rivet, and you can see how the cladding pulls the rivet out of the hole in the cylinder. If I get this wrong and hit the rivet with the screwdriver, then the rivet will probably break and half of it will be left in the hole. Then it will need drilling out, so I'm trying not to do that. This cladding is too thin, and over the years it's been dinted and it's been filled. Initially I started to fill the cladding with JB Weld, but in the end I thought no, this is a waste of time. So I'm going to completely reclad both of the cylinders using thicker metal. If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And now, with my hands trembling with the immense excitement of knowing that this is possibly the last rivet, I very carefully tap away around the rivet and remove it from the cylinder. So it's off with the piece of cladding in exactly the same way as you've just seen, starting at the back of this one. And once again I'm being very careful not to shear off the rivet. And here's the last one. None of them sheared off, that's good news. In this clip I'm removing the old drain cock from the brass bush. And now all of the drain cocks have been removed. Before I refit anything, I'm going to make sure that they're not blocked. This one's definitely blocked. And once I clean out this hole using this pin, the cellulose thinners disappears. It actually runs down into the cylinder. And here's the cylinder at the other side receiving the same treatment. The hole in the drain cock is just big enough to allow a pin in there, so you can clean out these holes with the drain cocks in place. But as I said earlier, I'm going to replace the drain cocks on this engine anyway with new ones. By using a combination of some clean cellulose thinners, the toothbrush and a cloth, I've cleaned out the 1/4x40 threads per inch hole in the cylinder, and I'm going to use some retainer, this is Bond Lock 603, to make sure the brass bush doesn't come loose again. And here in this clip I'm using some more cellulose thinners just to remove the excess bond lock that ran out as I screwed the part in place. That is now looking a whole lot better. In episode 19 of this series, I show the making and fitting of the new cladding. This is before and this is after. A considerable improvement. That's it for now. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.